Dave, always a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, I haven't had you on for a very long time, and thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. You're out in Switzerland, and right now we're in the middle of this coronavirus event that's going on. The global economy is shut down. I just wanted to get your take on what is happening out by you. What do you see happening? What is your country doing? And if you heard from others, what are they doing?
Okay, so the general situation in Switzerland is also that, small business shop owners, restaurants, tourism, basically all the guys who made a living, certain entrepreneurs. I mean, the smaller businesses at the end of the day, the sound backbone of an economy, which always was also critical when it comes to government control, living their independent, sovereign life with their own business. I mean, these guys all had to shut down. And now they are looking at an existential threat because, also here in Switzerland, it's like everywhere, people did not save over the past. Basically, everyone was just, did not put money on the side because saving doesn't make sense and everything became more expensive. So, but, these guys are really crashed now. I mean, what we are witnessing is a nationalization of the economy at the end of the day with those political measures which have been taken because of the flu called corona.
Do you think that this whole thing that we're watching right now do you think this is a cover for the central bank system? Because if you really think about it, the entire global economy was debt heavy. It wasn't going well in a lot of places in Europe. Do you think this is some type of cover up for their system crashing?
I mean, let's just look at the figures, when it comes to corona. Basically, to define, is it disproportional what the governments are doing? We can only stick to the figures. I mean, we see what's going on. We hear the informations in the mass media, but still, even up to today, I think we have 730,000 people infected on a global scale, and so far 35,000 people dying because of corona or had corona when they were tested. I mean, we know from Italy that basically they just took everyone who passed away and had, corona. They basically put it into the death statistics, even if the guy was dying because of a heart attack or whatever. I mean, because even Italy shows that 90% of the people have been older than 75 years, and they had between 1 and 3 medical diseases already, so the dysfunctional bodies or sicknesses. I mean, a flu is always killing the weak ones. And so when we look at these figures, which are the figures as per today, the CDC, which is, by the way, a private financed institution, basically said just last week, from October to February 2020, 13 million Americans were infected by influenza and 12,000 people died because of influenza. When I look at the swine flu 2009 pandemia, there basically, between 11 and 21% of the global population has been affected. So we're talking about 700 million to 1.4 billion people, and 210,000 died because of the swine flu. Why they are doing it right now, I think it's not because of the figures, because the figures still are, it's a flu. I mean, it's not something extraordinary, but, who would have thought 5 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that, the whole global economy would come to a stop and that people would say there is a smaller group of people who might be at risk. Let's say maybe 2-3% of the global population. And so what the politics decided, instead of evacuating or self-isolating those risiko patients, they decided to lock down the other 98% of the population as well. And I think this is completely insane. This is, as you said before, we are in a completely over-leveraged credit system, and we always expected a crisis, and now the crisis is coming, but it is not because of the mismanagement by central banks and our own governments over the last few decades. Now they can blame it on corona, and at the same time they control the beginning of the crisis. That's at least my understanding, and that's why I never bought the story that you can destroy economical freedom because corona is such a crazy virus that is going to kill and affect everyone. But I mean, if you see the mass media and how they create the public opinion, the public narrative, the media propaganda. I mean, these journalists are exactly the same. They have written about 9/11. They have written about Brexit, that UK is going down, that the supply chain is going to break down, social unrest in UK when they go for Brexit. These are the media guys who said in 12 years we're going to die because of man-made CO2. It's a big hoax, and now these guys are writing about the flu, which so far is average. Not even when you compare the figures with the past, nothing is special when it comes to that corona. And so therefore, I believe we have to shape the perspective a bit away from the fear and control agenda by the mass media and really check out, what's really standing behind it. And I think there are some different reasons.
So you think they blew this way out of proportion? They pushed fear and panic to cause what we're seeing right now. And there had to be a certain agenda behind that. You just don't cause fear and panic and make the world shut down unless you have an agenda behind it, right?
Well, I have the feeling anyway for quite a long time that, this system is questioned by quite a lot of people by now. Even though the last few years, the normal people on the street realize something is wrong, something is fishy. It's not possible that we just can print money out of thin air, inject it into the economy, and everything will be fine. So I think a lot of people were believing, the problem with that is that one day you have to pay them back, or you just, cancel the debt. And I think that's a point that we would have reached anyway. I was always expecting a big banking crisis in the Eurozone for this year because the whole banking system has been squeezed out. And because of all this cheap money, we have also built up, zombie companies. In the Eurozone, we are talking about 15% of all the companies are zombies. So basically not making money, with their operational business. But linked to these 15% are 50 million employees, for example. And the same goes, of course, also for the United States. So at the end of the day, now at least no one is blaming the central banks. No one is blaming the government. Now it has been done because of Corona. It makes sense. People are scared to death. I know a few guys who also believe Corona is really the killer virus, so they're really scared to death. And these are reasonable people. They are maybe 65, 70 years old. I know them. One of the guy, for example, he was one that always said, Claudio, whatever you read, whatever you see, everything is fake. And he's an extremely successful money manager and, taking care of wealth on behalf of other people and not playing around with it. And even he is, he doesn't know what to believe any longer because of that fear and control agenda. But I think all these figures in the media, it's completely exaggerated. And we see that the new, China, it's okay. We don't know exactly where it's coming from. Doesn't make a difference. But everything started in China. China came out with quite a totalitarian way how to handle this Corona crisis, and the West took it over. We just copied paste the actions by a communist regime in China, and this is something where I really get scared when I see what's happening, and especially when you look into this crowd. I think it's a big socio-economical a socio experiment. How far can you go? What can you do with people? And you see this crowd control, this mass control in China, 5G technology, big data, big tech companies. In China, you're either ranked green, yellow, or red. If you're ranked green and you behave the way you are allowed to behave because everything is controlled and monitored, and they even know how much you spend, with whom you interact, and so on, that gives a credit system. And this credit system, when you're green, you can drive on certain roads. If you're yellow, then you're not allowed to drive on that road. You're not allowed to buy this. You're not allowed for air travel, and so on. And I think this is, at least, this is the reality that does exist in China. And now I just heard from the Italians last week that they were implementing technology from China in combination with 5G to monitor people in Italy, all the people, so they can listen to the iPhones, to the phones, they can control the data, everything, to find out who is together with whom, because if one guy is infected, we need to know if somebody else is infected too. And now that's the reason they implement that kind of stuff. And I just heard that the European Union came up with a decision that this can be taken over for the whole Eurozone. So this is, it's all about power. It's all about government control. It's all about going against the individual. It's a completely collectivistic doctrine. And if you believe that we can shut down the world economy for a few months without having any problems, I think then these people are completely away from reality. Because I truly believe that this world in 6 months' time is going to look completely different if we accept what's going on. And, this will be a kind of a cultural question, how to solve it in the future.
So do you think with the economy being shut down for a long period of time, you don't think it can recover like the global economy? You think if it stays shut down, it's going to look very, very different, like you said? Like, what do you mean by the world is going to look different?
I think, we haven't seen the financial panic in the stock market yet. I mean, the 30% correction, that's the side effect so far with all the corona. I mean, corona is the way it's been sold and hampered into the minds of the normal people. It's absolutely fear, and fear is paralyzing people. I mean, even here in Switzerland, I mean, I speak to a lot of people and I ask them, what do you believe? Is it right what the government is doing? And most of the people over the last few days and weeks, most were saying, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what they are doing. But I don't know what the consequences will be in the future. So people don't act, they are really completely, I mean, politics is shutting down everything. The nanny state is taking over. It's taking our decisions. We are not, we lost complete liberty over our own body and mind. And, I just believe it's completely insane. It's absolutely insane. And please.
Do you think that this economy, like I said before, will it survive this? Will the European Union, will Switzerland, will France, Italy, the US, will it be able to overcome all of this if it opens up in 30 days or so? If everyone goes back to work in 30 days? I mean, how long can the economy stay shut down and we still can be okay? I mean, is there a certain point where there's no turning back, where if it's shut down, it's just the end of this entire system?
I think, it's unprecedented in history, so we cannot, we don't know exactly all the impacts. But I mean, what is happening if you shut down global economy, you destroy the supply chains, you self-evacuate all the people for weeks and months. So the outcome is pretty hard, to measure because it's unprecedented. But I truly believe, when we will see in the coming weeks, as soon as society goes back a little bit to normal, we will hear about the big layoffs, these people, how these kicking out 10,000 employees, that stuff is going to start, and that will impact then the stock market. And then the real panic will start because a lot of people lost their job. I mean, unemployment rates in the United States, I mean, they're talking right now about 30%. If you look at shadow stats and the way it has been calculated, the unemployment rate in the United States, based on the method in 1980, which was definitely more sound and less massaged, you always had 21%.
That's right.
So even now in this crisis, I mean, it can go up in the States easily to 50%. And here in Switzerland, I also expect 30%. So what I believe is coming is that at least in 6 months' time, we will find each other on a lower level. We most likely will lose 30% of our living quality standards. We're going to see mass unemployment. We might also see riots in the streets. That's why they come in maybe with crowd control, so that they can control certain areas. But I truly believe, because, if we let government deal the way they are dealing with this flu because of those figures, imagine they can, then we have next year, or maybe in 2 years, we have the next pandemic again. And that will be the new normal. And if this is the new normal, then, don't be surprised if you really end up with, a chip that is measuring your temperature, that is controlling you completely, because we have to do it to protect, the people from the flu, which is at the end of the day absolutely disgusting, and just, about power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So you think that I call them the deep state. You think the deep state is making their move now to do all of this?
Hey, I mean, even the deep state, I don't know. I mean, I have the feeling, yeah, the institutions are trying actively to destroy their own reputation. And sometimes you have to destroy the old system to create order out of chaos. And so we should not always look, we just, this is this Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. That's the constant class struggle at the end of the day. You provoke, you come up with a problem, you provoke a reaction, and then you come up with a solution, and then it goes on again. And I think that's the narrative that we are in. And if people don't realize that their individual liberty is at stake, and don't at least don't start to speak up against what's going on, how it's been handled. I mean, you look at me. I mean, I'm Swiss, so my nation has been founded on the principles of subsidiarity, meaning help for self-help, and all the decisions has been taken on the lowest possible level, such as the municipalities. So for a Swiss, and even for the Swiss government, if they would have heard, that there is a flu coming and, it's in the media and everything, from a cultural perspective, our government should have basically said, okay, there might be something is coming. There are people who are at risk, which, older than 65, they had, diseases and so on. So we suggest as Swiss government that these people self-isolate. And if we see that this stuff is going further, then, we can create structures on a municipality level, on the cantonal level, how to deal with it so that we can let this coronavirus also in fact the elder ones, but make sure that the hospital services are not completely broken down. So really try to manage through this flu, and I think that's the only sound approach. But what they basically did, they locked down the other 98%. So I mean, there is something fundamentally wrong of what's going on and the measures that have been taken.
So they did the opposite of what you thought they were going to do. They went complete, like, we're in control. This is what you're going to do. And that's that. So they took control from the top level. And I think almost every country they've done that. They've taken control from the top level and they're telling everyone what to do. I mean, if we see it in Italy, we see it in Germany, we see it in the US, it's from the top level down where they kept pushing, let's lock it all down. Let's lock it all down. And even with your country, where normally, like you said, it would be on a lower level basis, they did it from the top level and told everyone what to do.
Right. Wow. So which is completely, I mean, it's going against, even the constitution is going against the spirit of Switzerland. But yeah, I mean, Rahm Emanuel, he was the chief of staff of Barack Obama. I mean, he said once, you never want a serious crisis to go waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. And I think this is exactly what is happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think
the example is China. I mean, the best example is China. And now the savior, even in Italy, it's China. They're burning the EU flag and they're showing the China flag. So yeah, if China is the new role model, then basically, that stuff which they have over there is coming on to our side if we let it happen, of course.
So do you think here in the U.S., they keep saying, China's economy is going to be the next superpower because of the coronavirus, and they keep building China up. You don't think it's a coincidence that it all started out in China? Do you think it was planned where they started it in China?
Hey, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I even believe it's not that relevant at the end of the day.
Okay.
But China, if you compare, I mean, we are at war. We had, currency war, trading wars, whatever. I mean, wars sometimes can look different. You don't have to shoot, each other on a global scale. But I mean, we are at war for quite a long time, an economical war and so on. And when you compare, the United States after the Second World War, they were owning 70% of all the gold reserves of the free world were in the United States. That's why the America became the world currency reserve, the US dollar. For example. And at the same time, they had the whole economy was up and running because Europe, Japan, everything was destroyed at the end of the day. And now when you look at today's situation, I mean, China is buying up the gold for the last 10 years already. The West has sold out their industry, through the multinational, too big to fail, super duper crony capitalist companies. They have sold their economy to the slave labor market, China. And so they have the industry, now they have the gold. I mean, it's no secret that they have more than 20,000 tons of gold, and they have this renminbi oil. They were attacking the US dollar as a world reserve currency for quite a while already, without a lot of success, of course. But they have a gold backed. They could implement the gold backed Chinese renminbi, whatever. I mean, of course, I would never touch it because you cannot trust the communists when they have the gold stored.
Right.
And it's like the WeChat app, I mean, they can, once you're in their setup, they can lock you out. They can implement negative indices. I mean, look at cash, the war on cash. I mean, now you hear that in China and India and certain other jurisdictions, they already take in the cash and they're talking about, well, we have to put it into quarantine and we have to disinfect. And even now, I mean, here in Switzerland, when you want to, everyone has, these windows in front of you at the shops.
Plexiglass,
and then they're saying, plastic.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, don't pay with cash because cash is dirty. It contains the flus. I mean, so, what they try to achieve for a long time, that people forget about cash, it helps. Even here, it helps. And it's an agenda which is, from my point of view, driven forward.
Now, you mentioned gold, and China's been accumulating a lot of gold. Russia's been accumulating a lot of gold. Wouldn't you think during this crisis that gold would shoot up? I mean, do you find it strange that it isn't higher than it is right now?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, Nassim Taleb said news are toxic because they only contain noise but no signals. And that's what we are witnessing on a global scale from the mass media. It's just noise, flood of information, bullshit, but no signals. So, I mean, the gold market, I mean, the last 10 days, I mean, last week on Thursday, most of the gold dealers had to shut down on the global scale because there were no prices any longer for gold in the futures market. I mean, they have to hedge. If you're a gold dealer, you sell gold, you have to hedge on the other side. And so basically it was not possible to hedge gold prices any longer. So that's why they have to shut down. And at the same time, 70% of all the gold refining is going through Switzerland. So, 4 of the refineries who are handling that volume, 3 of them are in Ticino and they're locked down for 2 weeks. And they're most likely going to be locked down for another week at least, or maybe 2. So we don't know yet. So the physical gold market has been completely dried out because, I mean, I have partners there in the gold business for 40 years. They have been working in New York, in the gold market during the 80s, 90s when it was really wild. They have seen everything. But they told me, they never experienced something like that in the last 40 years. And some of the gold dealers, they already made their budget for the whole year. So it was crazy. They had 200-300 trades a day because people were really, I mean, gold is sold out. There are certain companies, big precious metal dealers, they don't have a single ounce of gold left any longer. And so we don't know when the supply is coming in, but what we have seen, and that's now the big point, paper gold is huge. And the paper price of gold can go down to 0 because at the end of the day, it's a security. It's a debt security. It's a promise on something. It's completely different than the ownership title of a physical good. So what we see already now is that the prices are going in the opposite directions. Not that huge right now. I mean, in the past, you had to pay for a physical gold bar, let's say $50 for the fabrication premium. Right now, it costs $250, $300. Or when you look into coins, which are hard to get because all the mints have shut down or cannot deliver, that will remain for the next few months. No coins available. If you still find some, you pay 10, 15% on top of it. So the gold situation right now, everything came down a bit. Markets are going up. They injected 2 trillions. Then it has been stopped. So a lot of people thought I cannot buy gold anyway. So now this week it has been a bit more silent, but I'm expecting, that this is going to change in the future again. We just don't know who will be, who has gold that can be sold. And which is also then, not that you don't have to buy the gold, which is located somewhere in the States or in the European Union. I mean, all the gold trades I want to do, I want to deal, I want to have the stuff in Switzerland under Swiss law, because I don't know if these borders are going up in the coming months, or maybe if there will be, it's not allowed for European citizens to own gold any longer. I mean, it's all possible because, when you live in a political system where the politicians can decide everything, and the people have no say, I mean, then you are doomed anyway. And so Switzerland, it's something to join the mass hysteria, because even in Switzerland, you always find people, they would blame our federal council if they haven't done anything. So it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think, gold is, and that it has proven during the last 2 weeks, I mean, it's still one of the safe haven that it used to be.
I mean, we talked about the economy and what's happening with the global economy. Do you think this is the reset of the system, where this system is going to die off and a new system is going to be created? Do you think we're in a transition period, moving from whatever we were in before that was crashing into something new?
I mean, I don't know if it will be completely, if this old system will be completely destroyed. I assume that's why they want to bring in all this 5G technology, mass, crowd control, surveillance, complete access to all the data and everything, the Internet of Things, centrally controlled, because that could be then, I mean, it's a nationalization of the economy. And when the living standards are going down, I mean, they might come up with, Chinese digital central bank currency backed up by whatever, or they come up with the International Monetary Fund with SDRs, but it will be, it will be thin air, or it will be completely, used as a controlling tool for all the people. So I don't know if they can keep it together or if it will completely fall apart. But I truly believe, look at 9/11. I mean, all that stuff. Like, we had a living before the 9/11 and one after 9/11, and I mean everyone on this planet. I mean, certain things completely changed, but all these rules and the stuff that government did, they never got, they never reduced it or deleted those kind of acts. So they always remain in place. And as I said, if they really can make out of a flu to shut down the whole economy, I mean, they're going to do it in the future again. They will have full control. And that's really what I have never been more uncertain about the future than today. And I truly believe that I'm completely wrong. I hope so, really. But I think, if you have, the problem with our society is that, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he always said, the mark of an educated mind is to entertain an idea without accepting it. And when I talk to people today, because of political correctness, because free speech can be dangerous, because even having your own opinion, which is going against mainstream, is pretty a luxury good. Or even, people who do something, they want to show the face on the internet because they are scared that the government could go after them. I mean, these are all signs that we are really in a wrong system, and certain things and the power that government has grasped is just completely insane, and it's very dangerous if we don't realize. And you cannot trade in your liberty for security, because if you do that, then you lose both.
I agree. Do you see anything that's good that can come out of this, where this might be a fresh new start for the people, where we can look at the entire system and say, listen, this system couldn't survive this, outbreak of this coronavirus. Maybe we need something different. Do you think there's something that we can do, or something that the people can wake up to say, something, we need to change what we have right now?
I think when people in a few months' time, when they will see that this corona was not as dangerous as they have been told, but at the same time that they will realize that they lost, big chunk of their future, and that they are in a much worse position than before that crisis, I think then people will turn against the government, and they will start questioning what they have done. And it depends. I mean, it will be quite a cultural thing, how to deal with that. So I still trust that the Swiss people, that quite a lot of people you find, with a sound, they still believe in individual liberty. They also understand that the government cannot give what it has stolen before, and so that the people will start organizing themselves how to deal with that mess. So what will be left after it. I don't know if it will be, global trade might come to a halt. I have no clue. If they want to. I mean, I heard that the car industry. It's all about the internet, at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of the internet. So every coin has two sides. So one side of the coin is the Chinese model, complete surveillance technology, big data, crowd control, facial recognition, all that stuff. But on the other side, and that's the beauty of the internet, is no one invented the internet. There is no Bill Gates, there is no Steve Jobs who invented the internet. The internet started and it has been completely anarchistic, the whole development, and it's peer-to-peer and it's open source. So the basis is uncontrollable. And so now we see, this Bitcoin, blockchain, that kind of stuff.
Right.
This is basically, this will allow the individual to regain freedom, at least in the digital world. So meaning, we don't have to kill the king if we just can ignore the king, because we can have, now it's the time for private currencies, tradable on the blockchain or off-chain, on-chain, or whatever, but we don't need the banking system any longer. I mean, so I truly believe the people who are now looking for alternatives, which are not controlled by central authorities, so the internet will be part of the solution and not, it's not that. It's not the technology that will kill us. I mean, people who use it consciously and who understand what's going on, and that can be, people like you and me. I'm not a tech specialist, but we have the possibility with the internet, to have, blockchain. We can digital gold, we can trade it. I mean, what we have to assure whenever there is physical goods involved, we have to make sure that it's in the right jurisdiction. And for the time being, as I said, it's something to join this mass Muppet show and to lock down and do what the others are doing. But I think it's another thing for the Swiss government to confiscate private property, especially when kept outside the banking system and you're not indebted. And, it's like physical gold, for example, or hard assets, or the base metals. So I hope that Switzerland will remain, a kind of bastion of liberty. Also, that our politicians has completely lost that relationship. But at the end of the day, we are the last direct democracy. So at the end of the day, still the people are the sovereign if they really want to. And I still have, I still believe in the Swiss people and also in the guys from Liechtenstein and so on, that we might not take in, this Chinese model, that we will have more freedom than people living in the European Union and so on. And then it's just, it's a matter of time until these structures are going down the drain. So, the future it's always uncertain about the future, but I think how the world will look like in 6 months' time, I don't know exactly. I don't know, but I think a lot of possibilities are open, but it will be not for the greater good of the normal people.
Claudio, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
So they can go to claudiogras.ch. So I write on a regular basis. Right now I'm doing an interview with Prince Michael of Liechtenstein.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Because I interviewed the guy several times, and he's really sound. He's a classic liberal. He's also, I believe in natural authorities. I don't believe in rulers, but I truly believe natural authorities, guys who are wise, who understand, have certain principles, liberty, freedom, private property, Christianity as well. China is communism. Mao was a Yale man. It's a different beat over there, what the government enforced. But Prince Michael is definitely a sound person, and it will be interesting to hear what he is saying about how this has been handled, what he thinks about the whole situation and so on. And I think